I'm Kevin Tetz, and thanks for watching AMD Garage. With these videos, we're hoping to pass on not only some good product information to you, but some tips and tricks and techniques that are hopefully going to make your restoration project to go even smoother. Now in this video, obviously we've got a Camaro here. It's a second-gen Camaro, and we're going to show you how to do what some people consider controversial, but is actually a really interesting upgrade for a lot of cars. It's a conversion of your newer style Camaro to the traditional 71 through 73 Rally Sport front end, sometimes known as the split bumper front end. In other words, we're going to show you how to give your newer Camaro the early second-gen facelift. Before I start showing you parts, I want to show you a couple of resources that are going to help you along your way. The first one is this chassis service and overhaul manual. This is really interesting. I got this from an internet auction, and it's an original one. I've got kind of earmarked a couple of things that are relevant to us today. We've got exploded diagrams here of the grille, the way the grille mounts, mounting points, fastener points, even repair procedures for the Endura nose that we're going to use. Back here, again, we've got just different guides that show us emblem placement, all the important things that we're going to need because we're kind of going blind. The two front ends, my car is a 74, and what we're trying to replicate is a 71 Rally Sport. They're completely different and require different parts, different mounting points. So this guide is really a good resource for you to have and not very expensive to buy. The other one I want to talk about is the actual AMD catalog. This is for Chevy Performance, GM Restoration parts, and of course we've got first and second gen Camaro parts here. Right here, we've got our own exploded diagram showing you the bumper mounting points, the orientation of the parts, where the Endura nose goes, and the different kits and availability that we have. In here into the later model stuff, we can, if you've got a later model Camaro, you don't want to do what we're doing, there's all kinds of resources here. The parts that we have for these cars, there's a lot of parts in the catalog, and it's not just metal. There's braces, there's glass, we've got weather seals, we've got insulation products, so there's a lot of resources that you may not know about. So come by, see us at a car show, or just request a catalog, we'll mail one to you, or look at our website. We've got a really great 360-degree view so you can look at parts from the back side and the front side and see exactly what they look like, the quality of the stampings or the quality of the part, and make sure it's the proper part before you click the buy button. So these two resources here are going to help me, and hopefully they'll help you as well. As far as difficulty goes, this video is mock-up, which what that means is that we're not doing body work, we're not doing paint work, we're doing panel fit to test to see if everything fits together. So it's relatively simple, and it should be about a 2 out of 5 on the difficulty meter. As far as tools, you're going to need an SAE socket set, a basic socket set. I find that the 1/4-inch drive allows you inside different places with a little bit better access. A set of gear wrenches helps because, again, the ratcheting head helps you get access to some of the tight corners, and there are a few of them once you start assembling the nose. Electric tools are nice to have because you're not dragging an air hose or a cord around, and this 1/4 drive set really helps us when we're trying to zip in a lot of bolts. All in all, very simple tool requirements, and probably what you already have in your toolbox. Second generation Camaros are basically categorized into 3 different groups or styles. 1970 to 1973, which is what we're trying to replicate. 1974 through 1977, which is often referred to as the big bumper style. 1978 through 1981, which is referred to as the rubber nose style. Ours started out as in 1974, which gives us a lot of advantages over some of the later models than ours. And it allows us to reuse a lot of the parts since there's crossover between the early second gens and these mid-range second gens. Now, we've already converted the back end of this 74 to the 71 to 73 appearance using AMD trunk floor, quarter panels, trunk drop-offs, outer wheelhouses, and even the trunk lid and the transition panel itself. So the transformation is complete back here, and what we're focused on today is the front. Now with our car, it's a 1974, so it gives us an advantage. We can reuse a lot of the parts, like the fenders and the hood. Now Auto Metal Direct has a cowl induction hood, but we don't offer the flat hood, so that's the style that I want with this car, and we're going to be able to reuse the fenders and the hood because those cross over between between 70 and 1977. So if you've got a later model car that you want to do this conversion on, put your Rally Sport nose on, reach to the AMD catalog and we'll set you up with all the parts that you could possibly want, anything you need to do this conversion. Now here's a part that we're not going to be able to reuse. Check this out. Now this is the inner fender. This is from the passenger side. And in the first place, this is rusty. Here's the battery tray, and rust is like a glacier. You only see a little bit on the top. Most of it's under the bottom side. So we've got to replace this. However, this inner fender doesn't meet the radiator support for the earlier version. So this piece right here, well, it needs to be upgraded to the earlier version of the inner fender, which actually meets the radiator support on the backside. If you're good with sheet metal, you can convert it. It's a 90-degree bend. You just got to do a little bit of welding. You can make yours work. But ours, sadly, they're too rusty, and we're just going to be upgrading and getting new ones from the catalog. We are going to be able to use these hood hinges, which actually cross over from 70 all the way up to 1981. These hinges are identical. The mounting points and the pickup points and the fenders are identical. And these ones, believe it or not, as crusty as they look, are in pretty good shape. They weren't sloppy, they didn't rattle, and I think they're going to serve us very well and get a good hood to fender alignment. One thing I am 100% going to do, and this is a really great idea and an important tip that I want to pass on to you, is pre-lube your hinges, even if you're just trying to get the hood open for the first time after your vehicle's sitting for a while. You can bend the bracing, you can actually bend and fold your sheet metal, so a little bit of lube goes a long way when it comes to old parts that have to kind of do the happy dance together. So pre-lube your hinges. Now the grille is the centerpiece to this whole front end, and we've got options for you. If you want to replicate the standard Z28, this black and chrome grille is actually kind of beautiful, but it's not the RS grille, which is actually a two-piece plastic grille, but it's centered around this Endura nose, and this is a replication of the original. Endura was brought in as a bumper material that can give and kind of reform its original shape, and it's arguable whether GM got that right. This is the grille surround that sets in the Endura nose. The two-piece grille goes in either side, and there's a center grille divider here that goes in ahead of time. Now this is what makes an RS nose, in my opinion, and it requires a separate header panel. So let's go check that out. Here you can see some of the DOT mandated bracing that was installed with the later cars, later than 1973. The braces go to the subframe. You can see the enormous beams that come across the front. And these protective beams, in conjunction with the braces, as well as the aluminum bumpers, that gave the front end and the rear end the protection that GM wanted and the revisions that were necessary to make these cars safe for the road according to the Department of Transportation and fit in with some nice Camaro and GM styling. Now the easiest way to do this conversion is to use the parts that go along with the front end, like the 70 through 73 radiator support. We've got one here. We got this for a couple of different reasons. Now if you're handy with some sheet metal fab equipment and a welder, you can make your later model one work, but path of least resistance, it's much easier to start with the parts that the front end and the nose match. Besides, ours was rusty and it needed replaced anyways. While we were in the catalog, we got a new set of radiator support bushings, so we know this is going to sit at the right location and be all lined up when we go to bolt everything down. Now here are the header panels, or the header panel two-piece, that go along with this front end. The signature round marker and signal lights here. This is the lower valance, and of course it does not have the cutouts for the long turn signals, and that's the Z28 or the standard front end. This, in my opinion, is part of what makes the Rally Sport front end, and we've got all the pieces and components to build this one back up again, although both will fit this radiator support here. Now this is the header that came off our 74. You can obviously see the difference in styling, and you can obviously see that this one was beat to death. It was just in bad shape, and there's nothing wrong with these front ends. I like the way these Camaros look, and nobody can deny that Bumblebee was one of the most famous second gens in Hollywood and outside of it. But we're going for the traditional 70 RS look, so this goes in the parts bin. All right, so I'm going to start by inserting the bushings into the radiator support. It's kind of a tight fit, but it needs to be a flush fit, so we're going to work the rubber down into that opening there. Perfect, snug. All right, this piece goes under the bottom. Well, actually what we're going to do is set that right there and set it on top. That bolt goes down in there, and this is the sandwich that meets it on the bottom, with the exception of there's a lock washer that we got to put in there as well. So I'm going to set that right there. This side, same way. Okay, it's snug. Side right there. Take that side out for now. All right, so now just going to use this drift just to keep it located, and that helps it. Now I can be hands-free and finagle the magic down here, which is not a huge deal, but I do have to get fasteners in back behind here. All right, so I got it started by hand. It was not the simplest thing. So we're going to run it down a little bit. I don't want it super tight because we may need to adjust, but I'm just going to get a little bit of tension on it, mostly so it holds the other side in place. Now we can go to the other side. So I've got a tight fit up in there, and what I need to do is feed up the nut and the washer up through this hole that you can't even see, where it meets the shaft of that bolt. So here is my good friend and yours, strip caulking. So what we're going to do is just run a little bit in between the bolt and the washer. You can squish those guys. Try not to get any on the threaded surface, but now we can feed that in from the bottom, and my washer is not going to lose the face of that nut. Now we're also going to put another piece on here that's going to allow us to glue onto this guy. So I've got to feed this in, intercept that, meet the shaft of the bolt, and it's all got to happen all kind of at the same time. So this is going to allow that just to set in there and be steady and hold together while I can feed it and all that stuff. So a little bit of a juggling act. Washer, so I'm going to try and place. So now we've got the sandwich. So like I said, I don't want that super tight, but we're just going to run that down just a little bit. See, that pulled up that radiator support to where it's standing vertical and 90 degrees. So that's what we want to do there. There's a tech tip for you guys at home. This stuff is really nice to have. You can get it at any auto parts store. It's called strip caulking. So if you tore your project down and you're getting ready to reassemble it, hopefully you made notes and references as to where all your shims used to be when you tore the car apart. For instance, this is the shim stack that came from this upper fender. There's going to be shims in these cars because 70s GM stuff. Get used to it. However, we're changing things around a lot, so this may be just thrown out the window. We've got a new door skin, we've got all new panels, different subframes, stuff like that. But we are going to need shims nonetheless, so get used to that fact. I've also protected my painted surfaces here. Just a little bit of masking tape goes a long way, and where my tools are going to sit, just a bit of kind of pre-housekeeping. These shims you can get easily on the internet. You can get them from an auto body supply store. You can get them from any number of online places as well. So what I'm going to do is just basically set this fender up here and see where it falls, right? So I always like to lock it down up here first. And it looks to me like that old shim might be exactly where I need it. So if you'll notice these fasteners look a little moist. I have pre-lubricated them. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to chase the threads out as well, but it just really helps in making things easy to hand tighten just like that. So what I'm looking for here is how it lines up to the door. And we're not too shabby right there. So that tells me that this shim stack is still pretty close. So now with that pinned down, I'm going to go up front to the core support. I'm just going to put one in here. Did the same thing to the other side. And that's going to hold that in place. Now I can look at my other alignment points. Right down in here. Looks like I need a little bit of space between the fender and the firewall. I think a flat washer will do that. But I've got these plastic wedges that come in super handy. Actually, I got these from autometaldirect.com. And that kind of just presets my gap. Bring it up here a little bit, well, right there. That's about the right gap there. So now I can take a look at this again. So I'm just going to put two of these flat washers in here. Leave that loose for now. Double check my gap here, which is, yeah, that's about where it needs. There isn't a fastener behind here, but since we're mocking up, we're not going to worry too much about that. What I'm after, honestly, is the alignment between this style line and this style line here. So we are close. This shim stack is pretty okay, but the one from the bottom will dictate up and down, and we can align that from a lower altitude. So we're about the right height here. Style line kind of lines up, and you can see it wows out. It gets a lot wider here, so obviously I've got too many shims in here. Now, this isn't a video on panel alignment, but I do want to press the point that in order to fit your front end together, all that sheet metal, and we're trying to get a hood gap in this video also, you need to make sure you have your fenders at a nice position, at a decent fit to the door. So we're going to spend a little bit more time here, close this gap up, and then we can work our way forward. But keep that in mind. Don't expect the front part to fit if you're not working your way up from the parts that actually do fit the car. So we're going to start with some low-hanging fruit, which is the headlight buckets and stuff that is obvious. And by the way, if you're doing what we're doing, it was a different car that you took apart than the one that you're putting together. So there's no shame in having a reference like the GM manual or the AMD catalog in your hand or for a quick view to check your progress. But with these headlight doors, they're fairly straightforward. There's two fasteners that come through the back side, and there's captured nuts in the fender here. So I'm just going to get everything finger assembled first. This is part of a hardware kit that I got from Autometal Direct as well. The other hardware, sure, it works great, but these are designed to be exact replacements for the factory hardware, and it sure is nice to have new stuff that I don't have to worry about being rusty or wrong size or anything like that. And again, threading hardware in by hand, if you can get the thread started, and you're pretty much certain that you're not going to cross-thread anything. Give this a little bit of a snug. So what this also does is stabilize the fender, and I'm going to leave these guys loose just so I've got a little bit of play right here. Get the other side knocked out. So obviously between 73 and 74, GM went through a major design change, and everything changed. The basic silhouette of the car is the same, which is kind of cool, but all the other stuff doesn't work. I was hoping to be able to reuse the hood latch assembly, but as you can see by the lever, this one pokes through the grille and that one goes underneath the rear bumper, and it's just not going to work. So that's fine. This is something for the swap meet pile because it was still functioning. And this guy gets bolted on right here. And again, we're going to kind of leave it a little bit loose. If you just started watching this and you're asking yourself why I'm putting things together with E-coated parts and uncoated parts like this, well, this is mock-up. We're just building it up to make sure everything fits, and typically this process happens several different times. All right, so we've got a little bit of a pickle right here. This is a welded in captured nut, and this of course is the space, and you can see it's not centered, and I can't put this fastener in. So what we're going to have to do, and this is pretty common with aftermarket parts and original parts and used parts, that you have to sometimes make accommodations for a little bit of fitment. So I'm going to get my pencil grinder, open up these holes, and that should get us going. So I'm just marking where I'm going to trim. I'm just bringing each of the holes equally inboard, which is going to give me a little bit of adjustment room and allow these openings to see the captured nuts in the radiator support. All right, we're going to try that. Yep, there we go. And there's an alignment dot right there, and it actually lines up perfectly there. So we know it's in the right place. All right, good. Moving on. All right, these are the support brackets that hold the nose in place. So these guys need to go in. The bottom one has to come in from the backside through the radiator support, which is going to be interesting to be able to get back in there. Yeah, this demands a creeper. All right, I'm not going to lie, I puzzled about this one for a second. This is the fastener that has to go in from the backside, and it has to go in through this opening right here. And the challenge is, don't drop this into the bottom of the core support. So it helps to have a magnet in case you do, if you have to fish it out. But also, we want to make sure that our fastener sticks to the socket while we're gently pushing it in there. So here's another tool hack for you. A little bit of masking tape onto, and this is a 9/16. So now our bolt sticks to the socket, and we can gently Push it in here, and it just has to see that opening. All right, you can see it on the front side. So now we've got full control over that, and we just go in here, start it by hand. I'm not going to fully tighten this, obviously, because we're still mocking up, and this radiator support needs paint. As good as the E-coat looks, I definitely am going to paint all of these parts. If you look at the subframe, that's been sanded and painted in a satin black, same as the firewall and the cowling, and I like the way that looks. So we're going to make this match. If there's any wrinkles or anything that we need to address, we'll do that at the same time. But for the most part, there's the way those go in. And again, because we've got fitment to do, I'm going to leave them just a little bit loose. Now I'll hit the other side. All right. Now we're going to install the upper header. So this is going to be somewhat of an interference fit, meaning that the fenders will kind of pinch it and hold it in place. Right there, right there, and I'm going to put a couple of these 5/16 fasteners in here just to hold it in place, just catch a couple of threads. There, no, come on. All right, so that'll hold that. With these guys on the side, that'll fit there. The bolts that hold the header to the fender, it's a nut and a bolt. There's no captured nut there, and it's a pinch. So they're kind of persnickety. You're not going to be able to see all of it, but what it's going to be is a bolt and a nut in the backside, one on there and one right there. So we're just going to go ahead and get that done, and yeah, move to the other side. And like I said, these two are tricky, but you can see where I got to go. We're going to go from the inside with the bolt, back and front, and then put the nut on the front side. Just, I think it's easier that way. So let's try. There's one. Actually, I'm going to go for the back one first. All right, now my hand might block the camera, but I'm going to spin that guy on there. I'm just going to get him hand started, just like everything else. And this guy is going to go right there. Well, that looks like it fits pretty good right there. Let's look at it from the top. So that fit is pretty flush, and spoiler alert, I've had this header on once before, and I didn't have to do anything to it. I didn't have to slot any holes. It fit good, so I'm just gonna kind of use my hand as a reference and snug those up. Down the road, when we do paint and body work, we may do a little bit of finessing here and there with some filler and some high build primer, but as far as an initial fit, first bolting it up, I'm pretty happy with this. Look there, super tight close up in there. All right, you see what's happening? There's a little pointed edge on the inside of the fender and one on the header, and it's keeping that from having a nice flush fit. So we're all held up by the middle. So I'm coming off. I'm going to do a bit of an adjustment here, just a little tap, tap, tap. But that's bugging me. So this is just a low crown hammer, and you can actually see what's happening right there. See that? You see that little stick out, that little nebula? Yeah, we're just gonna, it's a little bit of a, it's just a weird thing. So I'm just gonna get a tool and just kind of flush that out. Give me just a minute. That should be about all that takes. Yeah, look at that. Perfect. Perfect. Nice gap there. All right, back to the bolts. Our metal parts will do what we ask. We just have to ask it nicely. Yeah, and I'm not even adjusting that right now. It's just falling into place. Which is pretty impressive for parts that are manufactured 53 years apart. All right, so in the fender, there's a captured nut, and the fastener goes in from here. We might have a little bit of adjustment to do there, but it's flush on the bottom, which is important to me now because we've got a bunch of stuff on the bottom. But the way to get into that guy is with a long extension. I probably could have used another extension and got in a good straight shot, but using just the socket and a ratchet, you're gonna have a hard time. So get used to some quarter drive setup and some long extensions to get inside. And all of this, that's a factory joint right there. I've seen a couple custom guys fill that in, just weld that in and flush it out, and that looks nice. It looks nice either way. But right now, we are in good shape on this side. We're gonna go over to the other side and adjust the top of the fender, and I'm liking how this is going. All right, so that's pretty darn good right now. It's nice and flush here. It's flush here. The only thing I've got to do now is tighten up this guy. But look, that's going to fit nice. So I'm just going to tighten up that inner one right there. Same strategy, long extension. And then we can go on and kind of build our way downward. We've got some fillers here, some bumper brackets to put on, and we're just kind of assembling the Jenga puzzle, right? All right, there we go. Moving on. All right, so I'm just going to thread this lower bolt in right now and leave that sitting where it is. This filler panel fits right here. Just fills the gap in between the bumper and the body, and it gets pinched between the lower valance and this intersection right here. So I'm just going to temporarily clamp it in place while I'm holding everything else together, and I'll get that other top bolt for the bumper bracket started. All right, so we're going to roll with that for now. Now this other bumper bracket sits like so, and I can see, you probably can't, but I can see where it lines up in here. And again, this gets pinched in between the lower valance and the upper valance, and there's a slot, there's room to pinch that in there, and then we'll drop bolts in from the top, but I want to get the other side to match this side, and then we'll kind of sneak up on that lower part. We're going to put in the hood latch support bracket, which is obviously different from the one from the 74. This one still has the original bolts in it, which gives me a nice quick reference as to what length fastener to use in this one. This is interesting because it kind of just folds onto itself right down here. We've got a lot of different captured nuts on the radiator support and the bracket and even the header panel. But without any fasteners, it sits in there. So that's why I put it in after the lower valance. Here. So we've got a captured nut here. And there's one more that you're just going to kind of have to trust me on. It's underneath here, and it attaches the support bracket to the bottom side of the header. Right there, that guy, right there. Come from this side. Right here. So this is what I call parts talking to each other. There's no real issues with the fit of any of these parts. Everything snugs up. I'm able to get everything fit in just by hand and give it a slight snug. And that speaks to, I'm just going to say it, it speaks to the quality of manufacture, and it speaks to, yeah, the design of the parts and, quite frankly, AMD's quality. I'm just going to say it out loud. I'm proud of it. So, now we're going to put in the bumper brackets on the outside corners. And they fit in here. You can see the relief right there. So this guy's going to slide in there. And we're going to have to show you a different view of it because you can see it from the inside, but you can't see it from the outside. There's bolts that drop down through into some J-clips that are in the bottom of this valance panel. You can see the clips right here, and right here, and right here. Now these brackets go in right here, and you can see there's a bit of a relief in the lower valance. So these slide in here, and then there's bolts that drop down into some J-clips in there. Let's take a closer look on the inside. And I'm going to push this panel down, and you can see there's clips all along here. We'll drop down bolts from the top, and that will all get pinched together. I have to say one more thing. The inner fenders are part of this equation as well, and they get pinched in between the fender and the valance. We're not installing them in. Remember, this is mock-up, and we don't have the proper inner fenders yet. So we're leaving those out. So your view is going to be different if you're working on your car, but I wanted to show you how it all pinches together. So we're going to start, actually we're going to use a little bit longer of a fastener. Start right here. Okay, there it is. I had to hold my mouth just right. All right, got one started. Now we'll move on to the others. All right. All right, again, just like the other bumper mounts, we're going to leave this one a little bit loose just so we have some fitment room for our bumper ends when it comes time to put those on. Put the other side, move on. Okay. Ha, there it is. There we go. Again, we got a little bit of wiggle room here and here to fit those bumper ends. We're getting closer. So I've been over here fighting a battle, and I've discovered something. So when they say they did a complete revision for this model, they are not kidding. look at a couple of different things here. I was hoping I would be able to transfer these headlights over from the 74 back to the 71 to 73 front end, but here's a couple of clues. These are what clip into the headlight adjustment screws themselves. They go into that groove, and this mounts into the back side of the headlight bucket, and that's how we get an adjustment. It's held into place by the other corner by this spring right here. There's 3 on the 74 headlight mounting bucket. Now, there's only relief for 2 of them here on this headlight door. And what I've been trying to do is mock this light up. Well, the truth is, this headlight mounting pocket on the back side won't go in deep enough. There's too many adjusters. It's just different. It's the wrong part number. So I was hoping for a complete mock-up where we could get the rings in and the headlights in and have it be completely converted. But the truth is, when you do this, don't forget about your headlight mounting solutions here. As a matter of fact, the AMD catalog, which is number 6 right here, we follow that down to here, headlight mounting ring, left hand, right hand, 70 to 73, and 74 to 81. So apparently it's universal on left to right hand here, and left and right on 70 to 73. Just don't forget that you're going to need to convert your headlights inside, outside, and the bezel along with the rest of the front end. All right, so these bumper brackets, they're fitting. They're both a little bit loose, but if you notice, this one kind of kicks up just a little bit. So I want that flat and flush. If I have to shim it, I'll shim it, but I want to make sure that it's got a nice even seat. So I'm just using my drift bar. Bend it slightly, and that levels that one out. Let's look at the other side. This one's kicked up a little bit more. All right, so that puts those on a flat plane. When we go to fit those bumper ends, we'll have a better chance of them being level and symmetrical. The next thing I'm going to do, because I'm dying to do it, is to put the nose in place. So I've pre-assembled this center divider, and I'm using J-clips and these shorter fasteners in between to hold it in place. An older diagram shows a nut and a bolt to hold this in place, but I think this will work for our purposes today. All right, now we'll stick this guy in the middle. And kind of position it, do it one side at a time. So one side kind of holds it up. And spoiler alert, these pieces never fit very good from the factory. So you may have some body working to do when you get one of these urethane noses. Right here, we'll look at this side. That's okay. That's pretty okay. Across here. Yeah, we're going to have to do some tweaking on that, but this gets the picture. That's not horrible. That's not horrible. Okay, good. Now this should have a bit of an interference fit with that rubber. Kind of hold it in place. Just like Kind of like that. So right in here and in here, there's some plastic clips that go into the valance top and bottom, and then this grill surround gets screwed into place. We're going to substitute that with zip ties right now since this is a mock-up. That gives us our snug fit till we wait for the brown truck to bring us our plastic clips. Same drill, there's plastic clips and screws that'll hold this in, but it's a nice compression fit so we can safely put it in there and see how she looks. Now this hole right here, obviously there's the divider that's missing, and our hood release needs to go through there, and it lines up all right. Yep, I might adjust that lever up a little bit. See, it just kind of needs to come up, but still it's functional, it works, and our grill's in. Look at that. Look at that. So that is the magic. That is the Rally Sport nose. There it is. A couple more pieces and dreams will be reality. So I'm only going to be using the 2 carriage bolts that mount from the top onto these brackets for a mock-up here. One is there. I'm going to put these both in so they kind of hold the bumper in place while I get the fastener in from the bottom side. Come on now. That right out of the box. I mean, literally, that looks pretty darn good. All right, next side. All right, so what I'm doing here, we've got plenty of adjustment room in each side. So I'm just using my fingertips as a gauge to see what the gap is between the panel and the bumper, and I can comfortably slide the tips of my fingers in on both sides. It feels like it's about the same. So that tells me that we've got an excellent place to start. We can adjust them with a measuring tape if we want to. This side looks like it might be a little low, but we can bring it up on the firewall. And the purpose of mock-up is to educate us as to what we need to do for adjustments on all these panels. So I'm going to leave it loose, but I'm also making the mental note that these are going to adjust out just fine, and I'm not going to be having to fight prying against fresh paint when final assembly comes around. So I know that's a long, involved way to say that, but it's also a valuable point to make, and it's why we do multiple mock-ups during the course of a build. All right, so the marker lights, turn signals, whatever you want to call them, are held in with nuts and bolts, and they fit in like so. All right. There we go. Spoiler attached. Okay. Now we haven't shown you a complete restoration, but we have shown you a complete transformation. So hopefully this gives you some inspiration to get out into your second Gen Camaro project, whether you're restoring an original one or transforming a car like our 74 into a 1970 Rally Sport front end. None of these parts jump out of the box and onto the car perfectly, but what we hope to show you with this AMD Garage video is that with a little bit of help, a little bit of ingenuity, maybe some troubleshooting tweaks and some tricks that we can pass on to you, that you can do this at home. So get out in your garage, work on your car, and know that AMD's got your back.